Hey everyone, welcome to today's podcast. We have a very exciting guest today. For those of you just joining the podcast, we are E.N.G Media and we specialize in helping software and tech companies scale their revenue. So if you want to learn how to take your software or tech business to the next level, make sure to stick around. And if you're interested in a free growth consultation, feel free to drop us the word growth in the DMs. All right, Gerry, so let's jump into everything here. Maybe we can start by you telling us a little bit about your company and the role you play, day to day in the business.
Sure. My name's Gerry Gadoury. I'm the founder and president of Redbeard Solutions, named for clear reasons for those of us watching. We are a firm that helps predominantly technology services companies, though not exclusively, to become what we call destination employers. So about a year ago, I wrote a book called Destination Employer based on my 30 years in the space. And that time has taught me that the companies that really excel have established a reputation in the marketplace with their key skill set of folks as a place where they can go to 10x their careers. Probably my single big business success was my role as one of the founding leaders of Apisero, a MuleSoft implementation company. We grew to over 2,500 consultants in less than 5 years and sold to NTT Data for 9 figures. And really the whole crux of that success was understanding what a top person in that space wanted to see, how to be it, and how to get them. And that's what we build Redbeard Solutions around.
Nice. That is awesome. Yeah. And how I noticed too, as well, how important it is to be at least, working with people of top talent. My first job out of college, I didn't necessarily see, a route to be able to grow in my career and in my, professional experience. And so that was a big reason one of the reasons that led me to start my own business. So I think being around top talent and for companies, be able to acquire that is highly important.
Yeah.
And, for me, like if I were a potential client, let's just say, and, what are some things that you would want me to know about your company solutions? Like, how are you guys different from similar companies and how would those things positively impact my business?
Sure. A lot of people mistakenly think that we're just a staffing firm that engages differently. And while staffing is certainly a part of our service, the reality is if you were to take a cloning vat and dump a digital marketing firm focused on employer branding, a staffing firm, and a leadership consulting firm into it, what came out would be Redbeard Solutions. So the reason we see that most technology service companies fail in attracting, retaining, and hiring top talent is because they look at those as disparate things. When the reality is they're all phases in a continuum. The number one thing is to create that reputation in the marketplace I spoke about earlier. And the way that you do that is by breaking that methodology into 3 pieces. The attraction piece, knowing where your top talent, the particular skill set that you need for your business to thrive, knowing where they reside, and creating content relevant to that group that draws them to you. And conversely, that repels the people that won't be a strong match for what you're trying to achieve. That's what good marketing does. Everybody remembers the attract, nobody remembers the repel. The second part, once you've gotten that attention of the top talent, is how do you hire them? Now you've got that engagement, how do you capitalize on it? And frankly, again, there tends to be a disconnect here. Overly long, overly complicated interview cycles that just irritate top talent. One thing to remember about top talent that makes it a little bit of a mixed blessing is that top talent always has multiple options. So if you make coming to work for you difficult, they think to themselves, what's going to be like if I go there and have a problem? Heck, they can't even get me in the door. And then the final piece is the retention piece. It's a lot easier to fill buckets than it is colanders. So you've got to make sure that your place is the type of place that folks want to stay at. And you hit something on the head earlier, Tyson, when you talked about your experiences. We teach a framework during our retention phase called the E.N.G Leadership Framework, Engage, Fulfill, and Grow. If a person doesn't feel like they're growing in their career, they're not staying. Top talent knows they don't stay top talent by stagnating. So really what makes us different is the holistic perspective of looking at the entire picture. It does us no good to build you an incredible employer brand only to not be able to hire them. It does us no good for you to teach you world-class hiring systems and processes if you can't keep them.
Ah, That's huge. Yeah, definitely. I could totally see that as like maybe once you start helping a company like a tech services company with their branding and they start attracting a lot of that top talent, if they don't have the right systems and processes or if everything is kind of drawn out, they're going to have trouble with retention along the way. Do you see there being like a shortage of top talent for these tech companies, or do you think that they're just being, maybe ineffective at attracting that type of talent, but it's out there?
Yeah, it's a bit of a combo answer. It depends a little bit what field you're in. There's always, ebbs and flows in volume of talent, but the number one problem is your ability to differentiate. So
Mm,
so if let's say for the sake of conversation that you are a software development company of some kind, and
mhm,
I am a developer that's in demand. The skills that I have are relevant for what's going on today. I'm in a buzzy space. Heck, today, say you're an AI engineer. It
mhm.
doesn't really matter what it is, but I'm in something buzzy. I'm known. I have choices. Why would I select your company? What about your company would draw me to it? And if you can't differentiate, this is true of any business area, then the only thing you're left able to negotiate with is money. And it's
Right.
not so you pay less. I promise you that. It's the inverse problem of the airlines. So the airlines allow themselves to be commoditized. And so now, how do we select an airline? Whoever is the least expensive. What experience do we have? Pretty universally negative. When I was a kid, flying was a privilege and it was a fun experience. Now it's an ordeal you endure to get to the place that you want to be.
Oh, wow.
Hiring top talent's the inverse. If you can't differentiate, you got to pay a lot more. The only thing that makes you different is you're paying 30% above market for somebody, not a sustainable solution.
Right. Wow. And so when you're helping these companies with branding, and everything like that, are you doing any kind of like paid advertisements to get their name out there, or is it mainly like organic content that maybe they're posting on LinkedIn and on all the other social platforms?
Great question. So, taking a step even back before that, we've got to learn where that top talent lives for that particular thing. So, for example, McKinsey. McKinsey is known as the biggest management consulting company in the world.
Hmm.
Uh, top MBA talent flocks to them in droves. They know where their talent lives. So part of it, quite clearly, is definitely LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the biggest business network in the world, so that's part of it. Part of it is on college campuses. But let's flip the script. I do a lot of work with government contracting. Some of those government contracting companies that I work with, they are trying to attract intelligence people to work for the government. You know who doesn't have a big social media exposure? Spies. That's who doesn't. So they've got to find where those people hang out. And the answer for them is associations and conferences. So
Wow.
there's different associations that appeal to that demographic, and they have to be a part of that. Let's say that you were growing a business in one of the trades. Right
Hmm.
now, trades are white hot. Again, I hate to stereotype, but I suspect that Masons aren't heavily focused on LinkedIn. So you've got to know where they are. Once you understand that, that's where you plant your flag, and then you market around that. And to give you a more direct answer, the most effective is a combination of organic content and some paid advertising as well. But that paid advertising typically is for things like podcasts, associations, conferences, where you can't reach folks from social media.
Wow, that's huge. A lot of the tech companies that maybe you meet with and they're interested in getting your guys' help when it comes to branding, are a lot of them aware of a lot of the insights that you just shared, or is it
Oh.
uh, something that's still that was exactly what I was thinking. I just didn't want to assume.
Yeah, so the interesting thing again, and this is especially as a company gets bigger, when they hit employer branding, they think marketing. But the reality, and I'll use LinkedIn as an example since we're talking
Mhm.
about software companies, your business page will get a fraction of the attention of your personal page. So if I'm Gerry, the software developer, and I'm thinking I'm going to go to work with Tyson's software development company, I'm
Mhm.
going to look at your company page, of course, but I'm going to look at all the leaders I'm likely to interact with as well. So when I talk about employer brand, it's not just company page. It's the personal pages of all the folks involved in the interview process and the leadership team as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, and it's interesting too because I bet, on the flip side of things, like that's how you help, tech companies find their ideal candidates, like, finding where they frequent the most. And for you, when you're looking to market your business, Redbeard Solutions, are you, at least for me, I look to work with, tech and software businesses as well. What's worked best for us has been like cold email and also LinkedIn outreach. Do you find yourself, marketing your business in any of those areas, or do you have maybe any other channels that work better for you?
It's interesting you say that. So one of the most important things about marketing is understanding your buyer's journey.
Mm.
So we talked a minute ago about employer branding being a combination of different things. My business branding is the same. So in a software company, I'll pick on CRMs for example. If
Mhm.
I'm thinking of changing the CRM for my company, I'm probably going to research what the top 10 CRMs are in my space. I'm going to whittle it down to two or three. I'm going to go through their automated demos on their website. And then whichever I like best, probably top two, I'm going to schedule a for realsies demo with their sales team. And then I'm going to pick the one I like, and that's my buyer's journey. Anything staffing or staffing adjacent, there is no buyer's journey. In 30 years of doing this, I have never one time
Mhm.
heard of a company doing research on staffing firms and selecting a company. It just doesn't work that way. They go with whoever kicks their door in. And me, I'm not quite a staffing firm. I'm kind of a hybrid.
Yeah.
So for me, cold email was 100% ineffective. If anything that I wrote or used even slightly sniffed in the smallest way about staffing, they said we don't need firms. Delete. It was gone.
Uh,
So where we've gotten all of our traction, I'm very, very active on LinkedIn. My team is very active on LinkedIn. We can create content of interest to the people that would work with us. So targeted towards startups, founders, early stage companies in the tech services space, government, and private sector. I have a weekly podcast as well, Business Mastery for startup, scale ups, and early stage businesses. We've been around for a little over a year. We've got over 6,000 subscribers on YouTube. We're doing pretty well. I wrote a book, Destination Employer. It hit number one a couple times last year on Amazon. That's also obviously a source. I'm active in doing podcasts like this. I love being on other people's shows. It's all the fun, none of the work. So thank you for that. so so I do things like that. I also speak at conferences. I write for Startup Boston, which is the biggest startup association in New England. So I write on their monthly blog. I do things like that to get my name and my message out there. And my message is simple, Tyson. It's all one process. If you create the reputation in the marketplace that top talent will 10x their career with you, you're not going to have a problem. So
Absolutely. So interesting. Yeah, and I really like that. It seems like you take a holistic approach to a lot of the
exactly.
things in your business, and I think that's what it takes, especially now. Being in the marketing space, a lot of agencies, they just focus on, maybe one section of the funnel. Like they'll just run paid ads, or they'll just do organic content, or just cold email. But really, like you said, when you're able to combine the organic content with the paid media with other outreach channels as more of like a holistic approach, you're able to influence that customer journey and understand it better. And
Yeah, marketing and staffing suffer from the same problem, and that's that they have a very low barrier of entry. And because of that, tons of people go into it. They just frankly aren't very good at what they do.
right.
So if you can, it's not if you can, you need to separate the signal from the noise. For me, again, we grew a startup to 2,500 consultants, 9 offices in 3 countries, and a 9-figure acquisition, and we did it in less than 5 years.
Wow.
So when you're talking a couple $100 million, we know whereof we speak. We know what works and we know what doesn't. And the program we created is able to mirror that for other companies. So that's our big differentiator. Having a number one best-selling book is a way to get attention. And that's what's key. If you can't do that, you really have little chance. So I would agree with you. Finding something that works to help you stand out from the other firms, not optional.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, for you guys, um, like you mentioned, you can't, with your messaging and your outreach, like you said, these companies aren't really searching for staffing firms just because there's so many and it's hard to tell which ones might be the best. And a lot of them do get commoditized because they're not really differentiating themselves.
For sure.
outside of your holistic approach to, you wrote the book, you're going and speaking at conferences, you're doing all of these other things in these marketing channels. Obviously that's playing a big part of how you're able to acquire new business. But like specifically when you're looking at the messaging, if whenever you are doing any kind of outreach on LinkedIn, or maybe somebody who hasn't organically came to you, how are you like positioning your offer in your company, since you can't really say that staffing or recruiting, or else they'll kind of run the other direction?
For sure. So there's a couple of things, but probably the first and most important is that we don't lead with what we do. We lead with what their problems are, and if something sounds like it's an area we could assist with, then we try to schedule an appointment for a full presentation. And once you've given people an opportunity to express their concern and offer them some potential solutions, they become more receptive to what you are. So if you're to come to me with problems like I'm having performance issues with my teams, in the past they've been consistent, now they're not. I'm having to work with external staffing agencies often. I'm not able to close top talent. I have a flight risk, where I'm concerned that my best people are looking to leave. If you're saying these things, I can address those concerns. And when I address them, I explain the whole process of a continuum between attract, recruit, retain. And I mention to them, I've got several different offerings that can speak to that from a digital marketing perspective, from a recruitment perspective, and a retention perspective. Then they listen. And because I've mentioned them but not focused on them, when they come to that presentation, they don't feel like it's a bait and switch. Because I talked about those things. I just didn't focus on them. And so when we run our presentation, we run it the same way. Our very first slide, our very first slide is just a cover slide till everybody gets there. But our very first slide is about them. What's going on with you? Talk to me about your company. Talk to me about your problems. If they have nothing to say that resonates with us, I'll save them the time and say, doesn't sound like we're a match.
Yeah.
That very, very rarely happens because we obviously only schedule things that are relevant. But then we run through our offerings and we're good to go.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think, a lot of, marketing agencies and staffing and recruiting companies, they kind of come in with just like a cookie cutter approach, and they don't really take into account what their ideal clients are telling them on a lot of those discovery calls. So, a lot of times when people are saying, it might not be a fit, like they don't even really know, or it's not based off of real information that was given to them from,
objection.
yeah, it's just, oh, hey, you guys might not be a fit, but it's more of like a tactic versus like an actual truth. Like at least you'll spare them the time. And it's the same way for me as well. I'll say, it might not be a fit, and sounds kind of like, oh, of course he's going to say that. But you're right. If you don't feel like you can help them with the holistic approach, then it's not worth either of your guys' time.
Yeah, my company, so I mentioned staffing as part of what we do. It's a transformation for us. Our job is to make you into a destination employer. Our engagement model is a year-long subscription. If it's not a fit, not only are you going to not get the outcome you're looking for, I'm going to have a black mark on my reputation that I have to now sell through in the future. But on top of that, there's no way for me to make money, because if we're not in alignment, it just doesn't work. You have to see what I'm offering, buy into that as a concept, and then work with me to make it happen.
Absolutely.
Or else it doesn't work.
Yeah, and for you guys, like it's not a one man band to where you guys can just do everything from them. What sounds like, if they're not willing to work with you guys and willing to do their part, then they won't be able to get the result that you're trying to show them.
100%. And like I said, I've been doing this now for almost 30 years. I've worked with over 100 different companies, working through consulting situations. And one of the things that became clear early on is that no company grows past its leadership. So the bottleneck in every company in the history of business is the level the leader rises to. If that leader isn't willing to elevate their thought and how they do things, that's where the company stops. Or the leader leaves and then the company grows, one of the two.
Right. No, I love that. Yeah, that's definitely a gem. And kind of transitioning, what are some goals in the next 12 months for Redbeard Solutions related to growth? Like, are you guys maybe looking to collect more case studies? Are you guys, is it, a revenue mark? Is it a clientele base? Do you guys have any like specific goals for the next 12 months?
Yeah, so the way that our team is structured, I'm a former Marine. So we've structured our company very similarly to how the Marine Corps builds a platoon. So, four or five people is a fire team, 3 to 4 fire teams is a squad, 4 squads is a platoon, etc. We want to go from platoon to company. So essentially, the way that our company works, because they're year-long subscriptions,
Mhm.
it's a number of people per client that we need to have. So it's looking to grow in that way. I'm not looking to build and sell Redbeard like what we did with Apisero. I'm looking to build and grow it. And then once it hits a certain size, to build it in enough infrastructure that I don't have to work 7 days a week. I'd like to work like 3 or 4 days a week. That's probably years away that we get to that point. But that's really what the goal is to work towards. In order to do that, we have to grow our government group significantly and keep our private group growing at pace.
Gotcha. Okay. So you kind of already have an action plan moving forward on how to solve that or to get to that goal. Is that right?
Yeah, I've been doing this for almost 30 years, and the last 8 or 9 of it has been helping startups to grow. So, yes, I do follow my own advice.
Yeah.
So, probably the most important business book I've ever read in my career is a book called 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Dr. Stephen Covey. It is not a fascinating read. That guy is a dry writer. But the things that he writes about are second to none. And one of the concepts he espouses is beginning with the end in mind. So
Mm,
if you understand what you're building towards, you'll make decisions that support that outcome. If you don't know where you're going, it doesn't matter how fast you're going because it's luck if you get there.
absolutely. Yeah, no, that's super important. And for, for potential tech service companies or anybody who watches this podcast that maybe wants to connect with you or they want to check out Redbeard Solutions, where can they go or what would be the best place for them to connect with you?
Yeah, there's a couple different ones. Probably the easiest is LinkedIn. I spend an embarrassing amount of time there. If you send me a connection request, I'm going to accept it, and then we can message. Secondarily, if you want to check out the podcast, it's on our program's company site, destinationemployer.co. It's on YouTube under my hashtag Gerry Gadoury. And again, that's actually our biggest channel. Like I said, we're over 60, I think 6,300, 6,400 subscribers, somewhere around there. So yeah, those are probably the easiest ways.
Nice. You mentioned that you crossed over 50 podcast episodes, I think sometime recently. How long have you been running that podcast for?
Yeah, I think we're on 60 something now. Somewhere in that zone. We've been just over a year. So we do it weekly. There was one point where we were 3.5 months ahead. So
Wow.
that was crazy. I stopped booking new guests for a while to let that number dwindle down. We're still like a month and a half ahead. But yeah, we do it weekly, and it's been a little over a year. I started the podcast shortly after I published the book.
Okay.
So I think
That's
it was
awesome.
something in there.
And you guys are sharing insights that are helping these, tech service companies be able to, hire and recruit effectively. Is that right?
Well, the podcast is a little more general. So marketing 101, it's the wide net. So it's any business topic that's relevant to my target audience. So I have fractional CFOs, CMOs, CROs on there. I have leadership consultants. I have VCs. I have PE firms. Anything in that ecosystem that would be valuable to a founder or early stage leader, I have on the show. Obviously, it's going to make sense for the guest as well, but that's what I have on the show. And it plays really well that way. I probably every 8 or 10 episodes, I'll do a solo one where
Mm.
it's about what we do more specifically. But I don't want it to become just about what we do because I don't want people to think of it as an HR podcast and now they're only tuning in for that. That doesn't do anybody any favors.
Right. Roger that. Yeah, I'll definitely make sure to link all of the link to your website, to your podcast, and everything in the description of this video. I highly recommend you guys go check out Redbeard Solutions and the awesome things that they're doing, as you can hear, from this podcast. But other than that, thank you again, Gerry, for the time and for the insights today. And we'll catch you guys in the next video.
Awesome. Thanks, Tyson.
Yeah.